All right, we are recording. Hey, this is Joe Bullis, your clinical coach for MELS 604. It is November the 13th at 7 p.m. Tonight on the schedule, I am going to talk about CAP 3 and 4, and then basically the rest of the session will be question and answer. So if any of you have any questions on anything up to this point, including task stream. I do want to talk about the email that I sent out earlier today. We'll get that to that in just a minute. The email about the end of your evidence reflections, and kind of give you a little bit of backstory on why I sent that out. So let's talk about the CAP 3. The CAP 3 is just kind of a cultural competence measure, what you're going to do, and a lot of this information you can pull from, as it says here in the rubric, you can pull from the school website. We just sent out information regarding the NC report card. That's live now, so a lot of information you could pull from the North Carolina report card, school report card, if you're in North Carolina. If you're in South Carolina, you might have something equivalent of that. But even if you don't, a lot of information you can pull just from your knowledge of the science school. A lot of things that you did in task 2 as far as qualitative methods and the school website. But in your CAP 3, in task 3, you need to address each of these headings. So these are your headings for task 3. You need to kind of review the vision and mission of the school. Even talk about a little bit about the background that you know of how that was developed, what's it mean. So kind of, give some details as to that. Just don't put, the vision of the school is this, the mission of the school is this. Talk about the vision and the mission, but also talk about how it's used throughout the day, how it has influenced the culture of the school. So you want to give a little bit more detail than just this stating the vision and mission of the school. In school leadership, you want to talk about how the leadership is organized at the school. Have you got the principal and an assistant principal? Have you got a principal and 2 assistant principals? Is there an instructional specialist? The school, talk about the school leadership team. How does it function? Anything dealing with the leadership of the school and how it functions and how it affects the culture. If you've had a new principal, it'd be a perfect opportunity to kind of bring in some of that information. If you've had a long-standing principal, it'd be a good time to bring that information. So just share with how the school leadership is organized, the dynamics of the group. It could be just one principal in a small school, and that's pretty much it, except for the school leadership team. So you want to address all of that. Teacher quality as measured by experience and certification. That's kind of where you can pull in the North Carolina School Report Card. Information's pulled into that. Your principal will have that information as well. For those of you who are familiar with Title I or Title II, each district is required in the state of North Carolina to have a equity plan. Equity plan is a plan to assure that a student at risk has the same likelihood of being taught by an experienced, highly qualified teacher as any other student or student of diversity. So there's information that is kept on that. So if you want to contact your human resources department and talk to them about their equity plan, or talk to them about the information or the data they have on your school where they keep and track. Now, when we're talking about teacher quality, you usually don't want to get into the North Carolina teacher evaluation. You can. That is information out there that tells how many students were rated at developing, how many were rated at proficient, how many were rated at accomplished. If you're a good, kind of good communication with your HR office, they may be able to provide that to you. But teacher quality is, certification, how many national board teachers. You've actually probably already got a lot of this information from some of your past tasks. But and that's why if you've had me since 601, that's why in that school profile I went ahead and said, well, what about the years of experience? What about the national board certification? Knowing that you would use that information later on too. Parental involvement and support. If you're a Title I school, what about your parent and family engagement plan? Now, you have a parent and family engagement policy that reflects the district's policy, but if you're a Title I school, you should also have a plan that says how you're going to implement that policy. So that would be a good starting spot. How many volunteers do you have? This is kind of all information that I've gone over before, but just kind of, generate some thought processes for you as you look at task 3. Conflict resolution, not talking about student discipline here, talking about conflicts that arise in the school. A lot of that is within the shared decision-making process, leadership team dynamics, how those get resolved. If you have a situation where the principal has demonstrated or modeled how to, resolve some conflict, you can talk about that. Could be, anything that affects the culture of the school. Conflict, and I hate to say this, but conflict could be, the death of a faculty member, the death of a student. That's some, some. Unfortunately, that's a piece to being an administrator. Working with that crisis team in situations like that. Just over the last few years, I've had some experiences with that, and more so than I thought I ever would. So, and working with the school or some schools on getting through that. So, a lot of that can come into play as well. And student achievement. So, a lot of this information, as I told you, I think when we first talked about 604 and the SIP and the CAP, you can kind of go back and pull from some past tasks and some past work that you've done, and you certainly can here as well. But you really want just to give a detailed breakdown of each of those categories. And then if you look at the bottom here, you should contain a list of recommendations and some specific activities or program to present an action plan that will improve the culture of the school. So all of these join in the dynamics of the culture of the school. So the school that you're working in or the school that you're looking at, how do each of these have a play in the culture? So that's your theoretical context. Each one of these, as you write about them, you kind of want to frame it in how each of these areas affect the culture of the school. And even your list of recommendations and activities, you kind of already been leading up to this point, especially looking at task 1 and task 2, looking at the North Carolina Teacher Working Condition Survey, doing your qualitative study of the school. So really just kind of pulling it all together. Are there any questions on task 3? I thought I heard maybe something come in on the chat. No, okay, I just wanted to make sure. Any questions on task 3? All right, so task 4 is just really a graphical representation of everything that you've done in 1 through 3. If you're familiar with the PERT chart, P-E-R-T, it's referenced several times. I think I don't necessarily reference it or see it referenced in the rubric, but if you look at your prompts and the description of task 4, it's definitely referenced there, but it's a graphic organizational chart. Not just an organizational chart of everything you talk about, but also showing the relationships between each of those areas. And that's what a PERT chart does, P-E-R-T. If you Google it, I'm sure many of you have experience working with this, working with the PERT chart. If you haven't, you can Google and find several different templates. I think it even mentions in one of the prompts for task 4 that it recommends that you Google it and find a template and manipulate the template to fit what you need it to for task 4. So all the parameters that you identified 1 through 3, all of the areas that you look at, you create a graphic organizational tool to display the school's progress through that. The beginning and ending data sets that measure the progress of the school. and go back into your climate analysis, your school environment analysis, the cultural competency analysis. Design the strategies for achieving a collaborative, positive work environment within the school. Utilizes data to identify perceptions of the work environment, shared values, beliefs, and shared vision. Uses that information, all of this information here, as saying that you should use to develop your chart. But it's just really a visual that demonstrates the different areas of the culture, the different dynamics of the culture, and how those dynamics interrelate with each other. Very little narrative needs to be done here. We'll go back to the prompt to make sure, and I'm going to have to, let's see. Okay, that's task 3. Like I said, not really any narrative needs to go into task 4. It's basically just presenting this PERT chart. If you want to talk about it a little bit, give some information, you can, but it's all the work that you've done in task 1 through 3, and you just put that in the form of an organizational chart. Really, the best way to get into this is by actually just getting in and start working with it. Pulling the information out from task 1, task 2, and 3, and putting it in, start with the template. That's always very helpful, and putting that information into a template and working through it like that. Any questions on task 4? I know it's a little ambiguous with task 4 because it really is individualized to what you've done in task 1 through 3. So like I said, the best guidance I can give you is, you know, if you don't know what a PERT chart is, find the template, read up on it a little bit, and then just start working with that. The main thing, as I said before, that you want to show in task 4 is the relationship between each of these areas. Any questions on task 4? All right. Well, I want to address the email that I sent out. And you're not doing a reflection on the CAP on task 4, but and this is not coming from the 604 group. This is coming from one of my other cohorts. But the way I have done this, as far as competency reflections, I have advised people, okay, you pick the competencies out for that particular evidence, and you know, you can get those in the scale handbook. They're up here at the very beginning of this section, about all the competencies that are addressed in the task within the SIP and the CAP, and what you do with each competency. If it's applicable to the SIP and the CAP. If you go back into task stream, the SIP and the CAP evidences are kind of towards the end, and those competencies. But with each of these, you know, you kind of want to keep the competency folio and this separate. But in this, it talks about, you know, this SIP and the CAP requires competence in the following but not limited areas. So you want to address each of these competencies in your reflection. Now, in doing that, as the rubric says, you can pull from all of the experiences that you have went through in whatever course that you're in this case 604. Your course content that you went over with Dr. Sanders, the clinical experiences, meaning, you know, your internship experiences, and also the experiences that you've had in working with the SIP and the CAP. And what I've been running into here lately is a lot of candidates have been talking about their clinical experiences and been talking about their course content, but they haven't really addressed the evidences that they've dealt with in the SIP and the CAP. It's like you go talk about and a lot of people are heavy on the internship piece of that, what they've experienced in the internship, and that's great. That's some valuable experience, some things that you've discussed in class, some of the course content you went over. That's caused you to improve your skill in a particular competency area in terms of leadership. But you make sure you can do that. You can address each of those in communication, dialogue and inquiry, global a global awareness, conflict resolution, delegation. You can do that, but you also need to make sure that you address the evidences that you've been working with for that situation. And what this means for you is the SIP and the CAP. So address that, the experiences that you've gone through in the SIP and the CAP. Make sure that you address that too in each of the competency reflections. So when I'm talking about a reflection just isn't reporting what you did, met with the principal on this, went and observed a meeting on this, called together a PLC team and we had discussed this. That's just kind of as I said before, that's just kind of a report. It's not necessarily reflection. To be a reflection, you need to address on how all of these experiences have come together and how they have either changed you as a leader, how they have enforced some of your leadership competencies. What have you learned from them? What do you think that you did good? What do you think you probably could improve upon if you did it again? It's just a true reflection of the experiences that you've had in relationship to this particular competency. Clinical, course content, and working in the evidence. And then how has that molded you as a leader? So make sure that you address that, because what I've seen lately is I'm having to go back and tell a lot of people, don't forget that piece, and there was even I kind of addressed that with the university. They sent me some guidance on it, and so I just felt the need to send out an email to everybody just to make sure. Now, if you've already done the SIP and the CAP and you've sent it to task stream and it's been evaluated, then don't worry about it. You don't have to go back and change anything. But if you haven't got to that point on the SIP yet where you've done your reflections, make sure that you include that because based on what I heard from the university today, the evaluators are really focusing in on that to make sure that those evidences are addressed in your reflections. So that's kind of where that email came from. I just want to let you guys know, like I said, I haven't seen it a lot in this cohort. It mainly came from some of my other cohorts, but if the information is good for one group, it's good for all groups. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody got that. Any questions that I can help you with in relationship to task stream, in relationship to the evidences, anything questions you may have on the internship and Blackboard, I'm here to help you. So just let me know. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question or type it into the chat box, either one. I did put task stream up just to make sure that that we hit that. Remember, in 604, make sure that I've been focusing in on that competency folio. For those of you who had a clinical coach besides me last semester or up until this semester, when I looked at your competencies and when I continue to look at your competencies, I really don't know the protocol that your clinical coach before me used. So I'm not really doing a lot of ascertaining as to whether this as to the process that you've logged everything or why this may have contribute to this or may relate to this particular competency. I've noticed that in some of the instances, competencies from the APSL have been placed into a competency that may have been the guideline in the beginning of the competency may have said CAP or SIAP, and then open-ended. And the comments from your former clinical coach have been positive, and so I'm not going to come in and judge all that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that you've got 3 competencies, or that you're on your way to having the 3 competencies. The 3 artifacts for each competency. That's kind of what I'm focusing on. If you have not been my candidate before this semester, I'm not going to go back and judge what's there. That was between you, and I don't know what conversations you and your clinical coach prior to me had. So what I want to do is just make sure that you have artifacts there and that you're in good shape for 605. Let me check the chat. Okay, the question was, should we include the reflections at the end of SIP and CAP or just CAP? Um, if we'll go back to this, the reflection piece for 604 comes at the end of the SIP, but it does appear in the description and kind of the guidance on this is that you do reflect on the CAP as well. Now, what I mean is what competencies within the SIP and the CAP have you had reason to write a reflection about? So you don't have to do, okay, let's talk about, and I'm just pulling one out of the air. Communication. Okay, well, here's my reflection on the SIP. Well, here's my reflection on the CAP. May not be that much applicable in the CAP for that particular leadership competency. It may come more from the SIP, and that's okay as long as you address one or the other. You don't have to make sure that you address both of them because in this situation, both of them might want to be applicable. But between the two, you should be able to hit each competency. And if I didn't address that question exactly, let me know. Now in the CAP, there is no reflection on the CAP. CAP 4 is that organizational chart. There's not a CAP 5, CAP task 5 for you to do a reflection. The last task in the CAP is just for the organizational chart. But as you do your SIP reflection, and if you've already submitted the SIP and got evaluation on that and good to go, then don't worry about it. If you haven't and you want to go back and put some information about the CAP, you can. You know, if I don't know who the evaluators are. They come from different backgrounds and different experiences. So when you have different people, you know, there's the inter-rater reliability is always a challenge. But you know, will this person rate this the same as this person rated it? So it just, you know, it's really just luck of the draw. And I'm sure they attend training. Well, I know they attend trainings to make sure the inter-rater reliability is high. But like I said, you know, everybody's going to have their own different perception on things. All right, let me go back to the chat here. Okay, the question says in task stream there is now a folder for clinical experiences requests for spring 2020. What is needed for that? Well, I tell you what, you have caught me off guard because I am not familiar with that at all. It's a touche, and I hope I said that right. Do you mind unmuting yourself and telling me where you see that? I don't know that I can pull it up on mine.
It's actually on the home page of the task screen when you have that MELS 2018, and it also have let me see if I can go back to it. EDA dispositions.
Okay.
So there's actually 3 folders: clinical experience for 2020, the EDA dispositions, and the MELS fall 2018.
Okay, MELS fall 2018. Now, okay, hold on just a minute because I'm not going to be able to pull that up. Let me go another route here. And thanks for coming on board and let me know about that. I don't think I'm probably going to be able to see that because this is just an example from MELS 2019. So you're saying, is it at 604?
Well, it's on the home page when you go to log in. You know how when you see the MELS 2018 folder, you on that link. There's another link for a clinical experience request for spring 2020. So if I would click on that link, it will take me to it's bringing up like the clinical experience, like the request form, the volunteer form. So is that something that we need to fill out from there?
I'm going to have to do some research on that. I have never ran across that before. I appreciate you bringing it to my attention. if you, let me grab my notepad here. And I'm going to make a note of that, and I'll email the whole class on this tomorrow.
I can snip a picture of it so you can see what I'm talking about and email it to you.
You know me very well because yeah, I'm a big visual learner. If you could do that, then I'll research that out and get you guys an answer for that. I hesitate to comment on it because I never dealt with that before, and I'm not sure what that is.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks to Shay. I really appreciate you doing that, and I'll get you. I'll try my best. If somebody will reply to me, I'll try to get you an answer before lunchtime tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Great question. All right, so I'm going to continue. Like I said, just kind of review task stream. Really don't have to do no school ed dispositions, no competency analysis. You just upload the SIP and the CAP, but just really focus in on your competency folio and getting those competencies up to date. If you have not requested comments from me yet, I know you're finishing up the CAP probably, go ahead and make that your priority. That's fine. But sometime in the next couple of weeks, make sure that you request a comment. And once again, if you click publish and share, that's not going to be what I need. On your, when you click on a competency, you'll notice this comes up, request comments. So make sure you request comments. Now, some of you who had a different clinical coach before me, I don't have access to your competency folio. So the only way I will get access at this point in time is I can go in and I can see it's there, but when I click on the competency, it just says access denied, and there's some other verbiage. I can't remember what it is. So the workaround that I used with another candidate is once they were ready, they went and they clicked request comment and they selected my name, and that opened it up for me. So just make sure that you do that. The artifacts that I've been seeing have been good, and so far everybody that I checked is in good shape. If you weren't, there might be one or two that I had to go back and kind of do a follow-up email with, just to make sure that we're on track for that. So just make sure that you do that, because once again, you don't want this competency folio to delay you graduating next term. So any other questions that I can that we can talk about this evening? I started to say that I can help you with, but the question that Tashay just gave me, I couldn't help. Help will be delayed. I'll get it taken care of tomorrow. But any other questions that I can address for you guys? All right. Well, email me, and you're real good to do that. Continue to email me if you have any questions. I will address the link that Tashay just mentioned tomorrow. Get that information to you. I'll continue to review the SIP and the CAP. And I hadn't said this to a group in a while. I am, if I haven't responded to you in 24 hours on a feedback for review or something like that, send me an email and let me know. Let me know it's sitting out there. Yeah, I'm right in the middle of a federal audit, so things are really crazy. I've been working late, and I even had to work on a holiday to kind of get everything together. So I'm trying to hit it when I can. And so it's very likely that I may overlook something. So don't let me overlooking something be a delay for you. If I haven't responded to you on anything, email, review, grading, whatever, comments on your competency folio, send me a separate email and just say, hey, Doc, it's sitting out there. You might take a look at it. Just make sure that I don't do anything to hold you up from finishing strong this semester. I hope you all have a great evening. I hope and pray that, oh, wait just a minute. Let me check the chat here.
Dr. Bullis.
Yes. Hey,
I
Tisha,
have a
how are
quick
you?
question. Hey, I'm good. So I just had a chance to kind of go through my thing. So for our competencies, it it has to have an actual artifact, a narrative. So even if it's a narrative, you still have to have an actual artifact.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, the main uh, goal of that competency folio is to have an artifact, not the narrative. The narrative in your competency analysis, you can use all your reflections and your narrative there in the DRF. But this is something that the university, once again, they've kind of just refocused on your competency folios. Those are artifact, does not have to have a narrative at all. If you feel like you need there needs to be a caption or a couple of sentences to explain the artifact. And it's not recreating anything. It's just going into, like in change management, going into the APSL, pulling the artifact out of that, going into the SIAP, which of course you haven't done yet. That'll be next semester, or an open-ended. So it's like agenda, screenshots, snippets of emails, presentations, spreadsheets of student data, and of course black out the students' names, but any product that was created through your activities and one of the recommended evidences up here under.
So for instance, on some of our, so like some of the action plans that we created, we can use some of those.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And the PERT chart, that organizational chart that we talked about tonight, pull it in and use that. And this has been a question that's come up here recently. You guys are all experienced, so I don't know if it pertains to you or not, but can you use the same artifact in different competencies? Yes. If it's applicable, you can. You can use that action plan. Actually, the action plan that you created in the APSL, you can use in several instances that relate to that evidence. Good question.
Okay.
All right. Good job. Thanks for asking that.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, and I don't want to cut anybody short. So now, if you have a question, I'll hang around and we'll go over anything. So feel free to chat, unmute yourself, as I said before. Any more questions? There was a candidate, Monique. I know that you wanted to speak with me tonight, so we're going to hang around, and I want to go ahead and talk to Monique while we are close out this session. Any more questions? Okay, I hope and pray you and your family stay safe and well. I am going to stop the recording, and as always, I'll put